Folks, welcome to today's Politico AI debate. I know we're in the Swiss Alps, but my God, is it boiling in here? So that's a good sign though. It's because everyone is so keen to hear from our panelists on the future of AI and the kill switch. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Zoya Sheftalovich. I'm Politico's editor of our global playbook. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so just as soon as this debate is over, because nowhere else will you get the goss that you're going to get in that newsletter. What we've got today is an extension of our nonpartisan journalism. We're really about giving you the real facts, the hard truth, and the real experts. And those are the speakers that we've got on the panel today. Not just some people who are fly-by-night AI folks. These are the real deal. So what we're going to debate today is about the future of AI. This is a spot close to my heart. I myself am a former tech reporter, also a Ukrainian, who's maybe a little bit concerned about what AI is going to do to the future of warfare. So I'm very keen to hear from our audience today. So in terms of how the kill switches are actually implemented, we're going to hear from our audience. It's really a question also about whether we need a kill switch, and is it the tech companies or civil society that's going to operate that kill switch? I'd like to thank our partner today, IBM, for making this possible. And of course, we want to make this event as interactive as possible. So feel free to talk about it on social media. Our hashtag is Politico Davos debate. You'll also have the opportunity to express your own opinion via the Slido app. So if you folks are ready with your scanning devices for the Slido app, you'll be able to have a vote, and we'll see whether your views change. And that's actually how we're adjudicating this debate. It's really about whether you folks in the audience have changed your minds or not. Before we start the debate, please do help me welcome to the stage Ana Paula Assis. She is the Chair and General Manager of IBM in Europe, the Middle East, and Africa, for opening remarks.
Well, hello everybody, and thank you for joining us this afternoon. This is the second time we're doing a debate like this on some very provocative topics around AI and how it's going to evolve and shape our society. So we really stand at a pivotal moment in technology history as AI continues to revolutionize industries and redefine the limits of human potential. We must ask ourselves a crucial question. How do we ensure that this technology, with all its promise and power, remains under control? AI stands as one of the humanity's most important innovations, and we witness daily how AI helps in new medicine discovery, enabling scientists to accelerate climate change solutions, and assist businesses in serving their customers better. What started as narrow applications like facial recognition and language processing is rapidly evolving into general intelligence capable of autonomous decision-making. While these developments offer enormous benefits, they also introduce risks. Advanced AI systems, if left unchecked, could misinterpret human instructions, leading to unintended consequences, make decisions that conflict with human values or safety, or be exploited by malicious actors to cause harm. As we push the boundaries of AI, of what AI can achieve, we must simultaneously strengthen the guardrails that keep this technology beneficial and aligned with human values. That's why today's open debate on the need of a kill switch for AI is so pertinent. While the notion of a kill switch might seem like a straightforward solution, the reality is far more nuanced. It raises complex questions about practical implementation, potential implications for AI development, concerns about misuse and abuse, and ultimately, when and how a kill switch should be used, and who should have the authority to activate it. As you engage in this Oxford-style debate, I encourage you to consider not just the technological aspects, but also the broader context. How do we balance innovation and safety? What role industry, government, and civil society plays in AI governance? And how can we ensure that safety measures enhance rather than hinder the beneficial AI development. So we look forward to the arguments that Avani Desai and Connor Leahy will share against for the proposed approach. And I hope you all enjoy this debate. Thank you for being part of this important conversation and joining IBM and Politico here today.
Thank you very much, Ana Paula. That was fascinating, and I'm sure gives us some things to think about before we begin. So, now we get into the bit that I really love. I'll let you in on a secret. 20 years ago, I missed my junior prom to attend a debating camp. This is almost as monumental for me. It's an Oxford-style debate that we're doing. What that means is it's one motion, two teams made up of one speaker apiece. The speakers will affirm the motion and negate it. We'll start with each speaker giving 3 minutes on their side of the debate. I'll then ask some follow-up questions to each of the panelists, and each of them will get a chance, about 1.5 minutes, to respond to those questions. We'll then end with some closing arguments. Again, each one of them will get 3 minutes. Before we begin, what I'd love for you to do is vote on the motion. So what I'd like you to look at is the question that we're posing today. This House believes that the only way to develop AI safely is to implement a kill switch. You'll have a look on the screens. You'll see that we've got a QR code here. If you're on our live stream, welcome, and please scan the QR code on your screens as well. And please do have your say. Slido is going to do its thing, but I'm going to be very interested to see what the stats from this audience are. And don't forget, you can connect using the Politico Davos debate hashtag on Slido on your browser. So, are the results ready? Well, well, well.
I think the Wi-Fi is
Well, if anyone needs the Wi-Fi password, we've got a password as well. It's Amaron Guest, and the password is Amaron with a capital A, exclamation mark, 2025. So it looks like we're roughly 55-40. We might give it a few more seconds. While you folks are having that vote, I'd like to welcome onto the stage our guests. We've got, firstly, on the affirmative side, Connor Leahy, the CEO of Conjecture. Please come up, Connor. And we have Avani Desai, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Shulman Compliance LLC. All right, how are we looking? Interesting, 67. Ooh, you're going to have a hard time.
Right. It's okay.
66 to 35, 65 to 35. All right, great. Well, I'm going to give it over to the speakers. We will start with, let me just check, yep. We'll start with Connor on the affirmative.
Great. Thank you all so much. AI, intelligence. Intelligence is what gives us control over the world. It's the reason chimpanzees are in zoos and we're not. It's the thing that gives us our technologies, our economy, our military. Everything derives from our intelligence. We're not the strongest species. We're not the fastest. We're not the meanest. We are the most intelligent. This has been the state of affairs for time immemorial, and this is starting to change. We are building systems that are coming closer and closer to human intelligence and will soon surpass it. When we build such systems and give them the powers and the abilities to control, to do the things that we did to control the future will belong to them. The machines will control the future because they are more intelligent. Now, could we control the machines and therefore wield a glorious future? Yes, of course. The same way we've done with previous technologies as well. Of course, this is possible. But is it what happens by default? What is an AI kill switch? An AI kill switch is the protocol that can be initiated so that at a given time, any advanced AI systems can all be shut down from a centralized authority of some kind. Why might you want such a system? The way I see this is that as with powerful technologies before it, let us take nuclear weapons, it is clear that there is unusual risks with unusually powerful technology. AI is an unusual technology. It is not another light bulb. It is not a slightly more efficient form of washing machine. It is a completely novel form of technology and danger, similar to, for example, nuclear weapons before that. What we did with nuclear weapons is we had unusual measures of security. For one, we knew where everything was. Imagine if you went to Los Alamos and you asked, where's all the plutonium? And they said, I don't know. This is the current affair with AI. Do execs in this room know where all your servers are? Do you know all of your AI models and where they are? Like physically, do you know where all the servers are? And the answer is, for most people, no. I've talked to people like Google, like heads of engineering at Google, and they're like, no idea, and it would take me weeks to find out. The purpose of the kill switch is that you must know where everything is so that there is a centralized protocol through which such systems can be deactivated if some form of catastrophe or danger would occur. Is this in itself enough to create a good future? No. The same way as knowing where all the plutonium is not enough for a nuclear regulation. But it's a foundation. If you're not even doing this, look, if you can't even turn off the nuclear reactor, if you don't even know where the nuclear bombs are physically, you're in deep trouble. So I am in favor of this motion for this reason, is that this is the fundamental basis. If we don't even have this, we don't have a choice. The systems will evolve God knows where, and there will be no way for us as the people or governments or any other large institution, even the CEOs of their own companies, to truly make choices. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Connor. Powerful. Avni,
All right.
over to you.
Thank you, Politico and IBM, for hosting me. And thank you, Mr. Leahy. It's truly an honor. I've only debated one person in my life, and that's my 3-year-old. So I'm going to have a lot of fun today. So let's talk about a kill switch. I think it sounds simple. It's an emergency button that you turn off when something goes wrong. But as Mr. Leahy says, AI is not one system. It's a distributed system with autonomous systems, cross boundaries, cloud networks, and edge devices. To me, shutting it down is just unrealistic. But more than that, I think it's catastrophic. I think if we try to shut it down, it's going to lead to failures. How many times have we seen a cyber attack where something has gone down, but now we're doing this across multiple systems? I think there's 4 reasons why a kill switch isn't going to work. 1, who's going to control it? Is it going to be a government? Is it going to be an organization? Are we going to build an international coalition? Is it going to be a non-for-profit? Well, look, geopolitical tensions are already high. The US and China, let's take that. They have different goals when it comes to AI and what AI assets mean. Expecting them to agree on who's going to shut down AI and when to shut down is super unrealistic. But I also think it's risky. I've seen it with cybersecurity. We can't even get the international cross boundaries to agree on cybersecurity laws. And how are we going to get them to enforce this? AI is no different. The kill switch is only going to create some level of complexity and I think a lot of mistrust. Second, you spoke about, we don't rely on a kill switch for other technologies like nuclear, right? What do? We've really just built multi-layered, multifaceted controls, continuous monitoring, and strict international protocols. Look, even systems like OFAC, they're designed to have this ongoing evaluation and improvement, and we're seeing that has limitations. In reality, there's no single solution that can guarantee absolute safety. But what works, and we've seen it in history, is having a dynamic, evolving approach that's proactive and not reactive, and making sure that there's strong governance and compliance and adaptability. Look, because when it comes to AI, there's no way we can have a panic button. And that's not the answer. We have to really start building in resilience into the system. I also think it's going to create this false sense of security. There's going to be a level of complacency that organizations and regulators are going to have. I do not want developers to say, well, there's going to be a kill switch, so I'm not going to design the system with security at the forefront. AI safety really means having the right guardrails in place. So what is that? Clear regulation, again, continuous monitoring, human in the loop, and global cooperation. And the last one, and I think probably the most important, is let's be real. If we create a kill switch, bad actors are going to find it before the good ones do. And I see it all the time in cybersecurity. Ransomware, data breaches, and attacks on critical infrastructure, they get to it before we do. So a compromised kill switch could be weaponized to shut down economies, manipulate systems. So instead of us creating the single point of failure, what I think we really need to do is to have a decentralized system with high security, encryption, and resilience. The real answer isn't an off switch. We shouldn't have one in the first place.
Thank you so much, Avni. Well, now comes the grilling. Connor, I'm going to ask you a question first. What behaviors does a system need to exhibit for you to use the kill switch. And is that kill switch technical or is it social?
So as an opposite order, for me, a kill switch is a social solution. It is a regulatory thing. It's a protocol. The way I imagined a kill switch would be implemented in the real world is not some kind of like there's a master switch somewhere that gets physically pressed by a guy. It's like a big red button. I imagine it's much more. There's a red line. There is a phone, there's a telephone where K of N nations say, let's say there's a coalition of 20 nations, and if at least 5 nations pick up the phone and say shut it down, an email goes out to like every company that builds a certain degree of AI systems must have a dedicated inbox, and then an email gets sent to them that says shut it all down, and then within 5 minutes, it is checked whether all deployments are offline. If not, they're slapped with a massive fine. This solves a technical problem by aligning the social incentives. You get a huge fine if your system is not shut downable, basically. So for me, it's much more of a social thing than a technical thing. It's much more about incentivizing companies to actually build the kind of resilience and accountability and so on that you would expect these companies to have, but no offense, I have seen the infrastructure of many tech companies and, oh God. As for what would make me push this button, as I say, I'm less interested as an actual solution for an AI, thing going poorly, and I'm much more interested in the social aspect of it. That being said, of course, I think there are already very concerning things happening with the AI system, such as being used for fraud and abuse, or potential autonomous loss of control failures, which are, but of course, hard to measure precisely.
Avni, I have a question for you. So you made the argument that it's almost impossible technically for us to implement a kill switch. But just because something is difficult to do, does that mean we shouldn't do it?
No, I mean, look, I think hard things need to happen. But here's what I think. One, nobody at my office even checks their inbox. We can't have someone say, hey, we're going to send you an inbox, and fines don't work. We've seen it with GDPR. We've seen it with PCI and other standards. But here's what I'm thinking. Look, we should focus on where AI is today. Can it be an existential threat in the next 5, 6, 7 years? Yeah, but I think we should maintain our treasure, our talent, and our treasure and talent really should focus on where AI is today, not where it's going to be. We have a talent problem. And if I want the right people to be working on AI, I want them to work on what the productivity multiplier is going to be, and not what may happen in 5, 6, 7, 8 years. But if we build these controls into the system, I still think that's hard. Building these controls into the system is not easy, but we should think about today, at the same time prepare for tomorrow, instead about preparing for tomorrow and then being left behind about the innovation of AI.
Thank you, Avni. Connor, you mentioned that there should be a phone, a red phone, we all pick up the phone, 5 countries do it, and we shut it down. What happens if you've got countries on different sides of the coin, particularly considering the geopolitical situation we find ourselves in? There's a pretty significant split between democracies and autocracies. How do you get a country on board if they currently don't agree with the other countries on the question of whether to pull the kill switch or not?
Great. So I have 90 seconds to solve all of diplomacy. So as was said just before, 5, 6, 7 years. Maybe that sounds like a long time in business quarters, but like personally, I plan to have kids relatively soon, hopefully, and that will affect my children. And it will affect the children, I think, of many people here, what is going to happen in 5, 6, 7 years, and it's also going to affect the children of hostile nation states. It's also going to affect the future of autocracies. It is going to affect the future of everyone, especially if we're talking about existential type risks. It is similar to look, when I gave a speech at the House of Lords about this exact topic, there was someone in the audience who brought up this exact question about what about China? What about Russia? What about whatever? And this gentlemanly old Scottish lord came up and he said basically, what are you talking about? We did this with the Soviets. They had nuclear weapons. That was as bad, if not way worse. Yes, diplomacy is very, very hard. Dealing with the Soviets was very, very, very hard. But we managed to not nuke each other. I don't think this happened by default. I think this was the heroic effort of many diplomats and leaders and politicians doing very, very hard work to make this stuff happen. And look, I'm not a diplomat. I don't speak Chinese or Russian or any of these other languages. I'm not the one to solve this problem, but it is a hard problem, and I don't want to acknowledge that this is a hard problem. But just because it's hard doesn't mean we get to ignore it.
Avni, what is the problem of implementing a kill switch? Let's say, okay, maybe it doesn't work, and maybe we've got countries on different sides of the divide that don't agree to pull it. But why not just have it there just for safety's sake?
Yeah. Well, I don't even think it's possible to implement it, right? I mean, so you have all these different organizations. So let's talk about countries. The US has a very different mentality when it comes to AI. And China also has a different agenda when it comes to AI. So if you need to get cross-border agreement, cross-corporation agreement on what is even the definition of a kill switch, we're not going to get there, right? And so, and we're too far into it. So what do we do with all the technology that doesn't have a kill switch? Do we bring it back? Like, you can't put the genie back in the bottle. I continue to say, yeah, we have brakes in the car, but at the end of the day, we want to make sure that we're also making sure the drivers are good, and that's going to probably be better. But we are so far along to be able to implement a kill switch. One, I don't think we're going to see any type of compliance associated with it. And then what is the cost associated with doing the kill switch? Let's be proactive. I mean, we don't have a kill switch for social media, do we? I mean, I have 3 kids, and I think social media is probably not good for their mental health, but we don't have a kill switch. We have the right controls in place and guardrails to make sure that we are doing the right things. But I don't even think it's physically possible to implement a kill switch today.
Connor, is it physically possible to implement a kill switch today?
Physically, I mean, Jesus, physically we could solve all of world hunger and climate change tomorrow. That physically is not the problem. Political is the problem. Is like humanity can do incredible things, but politics is very, very hard. The technical problem is absolutely solved. Could we create bug-free software that cannot be hacked? Yes, we've had formal methods. You know, at least the French have had formal methods for many, many years now. Like, you know, formally verified programming is a thing that's been used in the military for many years. If we applied that to AI systems and just made formally verified AI systems that cannot be hacked, yes, we could do this. These things exist. The problems are political. The costs of the switch are political. We could do this. There is no reason the head of engineering at Google can't build such a system with an email box that is monitored 24/7 and will be executed on every time. This is much easier than many of the challenges that our biggest corporations already solve today. So in terms of technicalities, this is not very hard. This is a purely political problem.
What is the biggest risk from implementing a kill switch? Let's say magically we can do it, big red button, turn it off. Is there any problem with that?
Yeah, I'm worried about, like I said, the bad actors getting to the kill switch. I mean, we have historically seen bad actors, nation-state actors, state-sponsored actors. We are going to see that they're going to be able to exploit the vulnerabilities into the kill switch. They're going to get there before the good guys do. And I think once we have that problem, we have a bigger issue on hand. Whose hand is the kill switch going to be in? We have to think about the vulnerabilities associated with any level of technology. And this is going to be technology that's really important. I mean, you're in a hospital and you shut down AI. What's going to happen in the operating room? What's going to happen at infrastructure? AI is embedded to every single thing that all of us are doing here. And if it gets in the wrong hands, I would be worried.
Connor, how do you stop it from getting in the wrong hands?
How do we stop nuclear weapons from getting in the wrong hands?
I don't think we do.
Well, I think the United Nations might disagree with you, but in this regard, there's a difference between bad actors and nation states. Like, I would separate these quite strongly. This is quite controversial, I do not think that rogue hackers have yet infiltrated the United States nuclear program. Controversial, I think this is true. Now, could North Korea build a nuclear weapons program? That's a very different story. I think there's a similar thing here. Can we build a protocol? Can we build a system that, only the president can press the button? This is, in fact, the thing the NSA is for. This is the thing that the secret services are, in fact, for. And you can argue that the secret services are not good enough, sure. But then, why do we have an intelligence community? Don't be the perfect, be the enemy of good. Yes, sometimes intelligence communities fail, but that's just how national security works. This is a national security problem, of course, and we should treat it like a national security problem. Just like the president has many red buttons he could be pressing at any given time, and those do need to be secured against hostile actors. And, it's not perfect, but I believe the current security that the current red buttons have would be more than sufficient for this.
Avni, what's one thing you would like everyone here to know about why a kill switch is not a good idea?
I would say the one thing is in the last 2.5 to 3 years, we have gone down the AI path. Where we were November 2021 to where we are today is we've built a lot and we've embedded a lot. And it's a decentralized system, again, across several different geographies, organizations. I would like everyone to think about, why do we have to be reactive and build a kill switch and not be proactive? and focus on the guardrails that we have with the nuclear weapons and other really high-risk technologies. And I think if we can do that, we will have controls in place. And you're right, building it's probably physically possible, but you have a lot of stakeholders involved in this. It's not just one president. It's multi-organizations, multi-LLMs, multi-API inputs, and also multiple geographies. And I think that's why, yes, politically it's probably impossible to do, but I also think that it's going to be very high cost, and I want us to focus on today, fixing the problems that we have from a productivity perspective.
Some stuff to think about. All right, well, let's get to the closing arguments. You've all heard the debate, you've heard the questions. Connor, 3 minutes for you to conclude.
So as we've kind of talked about here, this is very hard. Yes, I agree. Costs are very high, but building a good future was never going to be easy. I don't know, how many of us remember, last large wars that happened in Europe and are now having wars reemerge. They're very expensive, and it's very, very hard. It's extremely tragic. We, in a sense, have had the luxury of living in one of the safest generations, the safest generation ever. I never had to see war. My parents never had to see war. I hope my children never have to see war. But this is an anomalous state. This is not how the world works by default. The world is complicated, the world is hard, and technology is an accelerating force. As technology becomes more powerful, more autonomous, more distributed, uncontrollable, the world becomes more chaotic, not less. Chaos is the default, order is the exception. It is something we must build towards. If we expect we can just kick back and not pay any costs, and a great, safe order will emerge naturally, we're on a bad path. Order is something we build. Peace is something we choose. Peace is something we build. If we just wait for, the forces of the market to do it by itself, we will not have peace. We will not have safe technology. We were talking about social media. Do any of us here feel like social media went well? Are we happy that our children are having massive mental health crises, that misinformation and massive amounts of just like politically charged things are dividing the United States? Is this a good state of affair, the US hegemony falling across the world, and all this for the profit of a couple, Bay Area tech guys? Like, is this a good world? Are we willing to sell out international security for the yacht of Mark Zuckerberg? Is that the world we want to live in? This is a cyberpunk world, right? Look, I love cyberpunk, it's cool as fuck. But, but also I don't want to live there, I want to read books about worlds like this. I want to read books about these like dystopian worlds where companies are unwilling to even pay the cost to know where their servers are. They're not even willing to pay to know where their servers are. So that maybe the people, the democratic nations of the world, could have a say in how these technologies reshape their lives. I know many people whose lives were destroyed by social media, whose communities were torn apart, who were drawn into conspiracy theories and worse, anti-vax and many other things. And these things would not have happened without social media. And I'm asking you, who is paying this tax? Who is paying the cost for these people and the destruction of their communities? And the answer is the people, not the companies. Where's the liability here? I'm not saying that we shouldn't have corporations doing crazy great things. Look, I'm a businessman like anyone else here. I'm saying we should price the externalities and then let the market do what it should. This is what the market is for. The market correctly prices assets. So if we price in what we actually care about as humans, which is the safety and the continued good future of humanity and of our children, I think the market could do great things, but goddamn, are we not pricing it in right now?
Thank you, Connor. Avni, you've got 3 minutes to respond.
Well, I think we have a problem right now. Productivity is declining at an alarming rate. Fertility rates are going down in every place except sub-Saharan Africa. We have immigration policies that are tightening. We have an aging population. We have a strain on the healthcare system. We have supply chain disruptions. We have skill shortages. We have rising healthcare costs. And this is holding back the economy. We're at a critical crossroads today. By 2100, China's population is going to be 50% of what it is today. So just think about the workforce that's there. So what we have to do is we have to embrace AI. And we have to build the right guardrails, which I think we both agree on. But we can't let fear hold us back. We've seen this before. Let's look at history. We've seen the technological breakthroughs of the printing press, which everyone feared, electricity, the internet, social media. And each time, what we didn't do is we didn't stop and we didn't stall innovation to the potential of what's going to happen next. What do? We built smarter frameworks, we adapted, and I don't think AI is any differently, even though it's a fast-paced technology. The future is not going to wait for us to figure it out, whether we like it or not. Our responsibility isn't to stop it with an imaginary off switch. I think we have to do it. Maybe this sounds like a little flowery, but we got to do it with wisdom, foresight, and courage. Because for me, the truth is, we don't need an off button. We need an always on button. And we just need to make sure that our strategy lives on, it strengthens our economy, and we do it in a way that we empower humanity. And I think we can do it in a responsible and ethical way.
Thank you very much, Avni. Well, folks, we're at the business end now. It's time for you to vote again. You've heard from our two panelists. Please pull out your phones and vote on the motion. This House believes that the only way to develop AI safely is to implement a kill switch. You'll see the QR codes on the screens here shortly, and if you're following us online, you should be able to do that online as well. Just use our event hashtag on Slido. We'll give you all a moment to vote. Very exciting stuff. Ooh. So as a reminder, our original motion, when we asked you to vote, was 65-35 in favor of the affirmative. Wow, now we've got pretty much quite similar. Can't vote? We're having some issues with voting? Oh, Christina, are we able to? Still getting votes? All right, well, it looks like we're pretty much 55-41. So we had a swing towards Avni, but not enough. So I think we can now implement that kill switch. I think there are a few people in this room who probably could do it. So let's get cracking. Folks, thank you so much for that. That was a really powerful and interesting debate. With that, I'd like to thank everyone for being here. I'd also like to invite Politico's Callie Bowdy, the Executive Vice President and General Manager of Media Business in North America. She's going to moderate an executive interview to conclude our event with Rob Thomas, the Senior Vice President of Software and Chief Commercial Officer at IBM. We'll just give them a moment to set up on stage, and they'll head up shortly.
Hello, everyone. As you are all shifting in your seats, we're going to continue on the conversation. And thank you so much, Zoya, for that fabulous conversation. It was really interesting debate. I do think that some of the votes may still be coming in, so I'll be curious to see what it looks like in about 10 to 15 minutes from now. But thank you so much to our debaters as well. And right at the top, I also want to thank IBM for your partnership in sponsoring today's debate. And I want to introduce you to Rob Thomas, who is the Senior Vice President of Software and Chief Commercial Officer at IBM. Hey, Rob.
Hello there. How's it going?
It's going well, but I must say, for those of you who weren't here at this time last year, this is a reunion of sorts for Rob and I. We were on this stage a year ago talking about AI, and wow, how the conversation has changed.
Indeed. Seems like somebody implemented the kill switch for the voting on Slido.
Yes. Well, somebody maybe should put some AI into Slido that would allow it to. No, I'm just kidding. If anybody here works for Slido, please do not take that as any sort of commentary. But Rob, you're so plugged in on this issue because you lead the company's software business, including product design, product development, and business development for all of IBM's AI solutions, including Watson X, which is an AI and data platform built for business. So I think you'll have a lot to say on this topic, is my guess, and we'll see if maybe you sway the debaters one way or another at the end of it. But let's start with a very big platitude. Rob, since the last time we were here talking about AI, what has changed in the past 12 months?
I think there's been a massive change, which is open source is one. We were sitting here a year ago and you had 2 companies, 2 or 3, 4, you can debate the number, that were actively seeking regulatory capture and trying to, I would say, control what's happening in AI. And you look at the last year, what we've done open sourcing models, Meta, Mistral, Hugging Face, to name a few. Performance has caught up and passed with open source. And I think this is great for competition, for businesses around the world. It's actually a dramatic change in 1 year, but that's how fast technology moves.
Let's talk about one thing that we heard specifically in the debate that I think is underpinning perhaps a lot of the concern and the even need to discuss a kill switch, which is artificial general intelligence, AGI, which, as I understand, is a hypothetical point when AI can match or exceed the intelligence of human beings. Do you think AGI is actually possible? Like, and if you do, when are we talking? 1 year? Are we talking 10 years, 20 years, hundreds?
I'm probably a skeptic on AGI.
Okay.
I think the computer scientist John McCarthy said it best. This was back in the 50s. And he said, once it works, it's no longer called AI. And the point he was making was, we always have this bar, and the minute we achieve it, it's no longer AI. You think about 25 years ago, what we do today for machine learning, everybody would have considered that AI 20 years ago. But now we're like, oh, that's no longer AI. Now we're looking for something else. So I'm a little skeptical that we ever get to this where everybody acknowledges we're in an AGI world. Obviously, AI will continue to get way better. It'll make businesses way more productive. I think it will have a positive impact in the world like all technology before. But I don't know about AGI. I think many people that talk about AGI have a vested interest in that happening, I would say. And so I'm skeptical.
Let's shift to talk about the safeguards piece of it. So whether it's a future robot from Space Odyssey or an AI model that's just tapping into user and company data, I'm curious about what your take is on where the debate landed today. And if we're truly headed towards more autonomous AI systems, what safeguards do you think would need to be put in place?
I think we're certainly headed for more autonomous systems, to answer that question. I think what's really important, and this goes a little bit to what I think is a key political discussion, which is how do we handle regulation for AI? I believe we should regulate the use of AI as opposed to the technology itself. And you look at what's happened in governments around the world, I think those two topics often get mixed. How people use it is really important to understand, because somebody that's automating their payroll processing, I think we can agree that's probably lower risk than somebody that's, gathering personal information and targeting people with that personal information. So the underlying technology may be the same. The use case is quite different. Don't think we need regulation on the technology. The biggest benefit, a little bit back to the debate, I think the issue with something as dramatic as a kill switch is innovation is really important for growth. And without growth, none of us are going to be too happy in the world we're living in. And so you can stifle innovation if you're not careful. So I would say let's regulate the use. Let's not regulate the technology itself. That allows innovation to happen, but we can also do it in a way that we're comfortable there are not unintended consequences.
But what are the actual capabilities that exist to even implement some sort of safeguards or guardrails or even a kill switch? Can that actually be done?
Well, let me give you a really crude analogy. A steak knife is dangerous if it's used the wrong way. So anything can be misused. And so you have a combination of, you have laws, you have deterrence for people that break the laws. So could there be a technical answer to this? I'm actually a little bit skeptical, but there could certainly be a policy mitigation to this. But again, I think you need to find the right balance where you encourage innovation, we regulate the use, but let's allow the technology to continue to prosper. I think the real reason it's really hard to get to, I'd say this finite point is many countries have different interests. And so you can't have one country that's saying, we're not going to allow anything to happen, because then you're going to get out-competed by another country. So I think we have to find the right fine line here, I would say.
So IBM's at the forefront of both AI development and quantum computing, which will significantly advance the abilities of even the world's most advanced computers already. So while it's not necessarily a competition between AI and quantum computing, which technology do you believe will be more transformative and have a greater impact on society and business in, say, the next 30 years?
I think that one is very tough to predict. It's almost like asking, like, what will have a bigger impact, internet or cell phones? Like, to some extent, one begets the other. They can both be impactful. I think what's probably, I'd say the interplay I see here is if you think of AI to the word autonomous you used, it can help you decide where to do things, how to do things. As quantum computing gets to scale, which I'm confident it will, it's going to do really great at a handful of use cases. It's going to be really good at things like natural resources, drug discovery, any type of simulation. It'll be really good at that. It will not supplant classical computing. So you'll have a market which is, I don't know, 60% classical computing, 40% quantum, or maybe it's 70-30, don't know precisely. AI can be, think of it almost as an intelligence layer across to deciding where can you best get work done. So I think the combination of the two can be very powerful, and we keep moving forward as a society and using technology, but I'm not sure there's one is better than the other state.
So we're coming to the end here, Rob, and you touched a little bit on some policy dynamics, but because we are Politico and policy is our superpower, I want to go back to it for a second. What governance frameworks do you think are needed to specifically further AGI development as opposed to narrowing AI systems?
I think Avni mentioned this a little bit, but I'll put it in an equation. There's an old macroeconomics equation that says GDP growth comes from population growth plus productivity growth plus debt growth. So let's project out the next 20 years. We're not going to have population growth. So maybe a handful of countries, maybe Middle East, maybe India, maybe places like Indonesia, but it's a pretty small number of countries. So we'd only have population growth. I'd say it's unlikely we're going to have debt growth, given where financial markets have been. And so if the only answer for sustained GDP growth is productivity, AI is an incredible catalyst for that. And so I think it comes back to this point of, I hope governments and those driving policy realize that without productivity growth, there will not be GDP growth. Without AI, there's unlikely to be productivity growth. So then you come back to, we need to do this the right way. So let's regulate use cases. Let's make sure that things are done the right way, the right transparency on data. To this day, IBM is the only company that has disclosed all the data sources that we use to train models. Nobody else has done that. I think that's a best practice. So I think there's subtle things that can be done to ensure fairness and transparency, and this can be a huge benefit for everybody.
Rob, thank you so much. Really appreciate this conversation. Once again, Rob is the Senior Vice President of Software and Chief Commercial Officer at IBM, and a very big thank you to IBM for your partnership on today's debate.
Let's just thank the two,
yes, thank
the two
you
up front. They were
debaters.
incredible. Well
Yes.
done, guys.
That was a very great debate. Thank you for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your Davos experience.
I've got one final bit of remark to make. My apologies. I know I'm keeping you here in this sauna a little longer than perhaps I just wanted to thank again IBM for their sponsorship, for their partnership, for making this event possible. We'd love to hear your thoughts. If you loved it, if you hated it, email us at live@politico.eu. And please do check out what other Politico events are happening. We'd love to see you at our AI Summit, May 13 to 14 in Brussels. With that, subscribe to Global Playbook, subscribe to all of our playbooks, and have a lovely afternoon.